Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode on this fine day of Talking Baldocks. I'm Neil Baldock, and this is
Matt Bullock.
Matt Baldock. And yeah, another episode of Talking Baldocks where I believe today, Matt, we're going to be talking about business acquisitions.
Yeah, so I think a few of our episodes have obviously been a bit more heavily weighted on the sales side of things, letting people know. But obviously, we're a full service agency, and we're fairly big in the letting space. But acquisitions seem to be a bit of a buzzword at the moment. I think the industry goes through phases of loving lettings and kind of the not when the sales market's doing good, nobody wants to do lettings, and when the sales market drops, people start thinking I should. And then I think you probably get to a certain age of business owners, the people that we're working with that haven't got lettings businesses, and they get a bit of a realization that the lettings is actually the valuable part of the company and it's the important part. So maybe that's just a touch point we should touch on there. Is why we believe lettings is so important as if you're going to be a business owner.
Yeah, well, definitely. And funny enough, I was watching another podcast last night, the Two Russells podcast, and had John Ennis, who's the Chief Revenue Officer of Le Monde Capital, on. And they even, they're a huge acquirer of businesses, and yeah, even he was saying really that there is not a lot of value to a sales business. It's obviously got its pipeline. It might have a tiny bit of goodwill, but actually with fall through rates and the length that transactions take now. It's not even, so he was saying it's not even three times, it's not even two-thirds of the pipeline now that some people might value it at. It's probably more like 50%. So, yeah, I think, lettings is that recurring revenue, it's contract value. It's a more, um, it's a more commercial type business, really, isn't it? You've got that recurring revenue, contracts in place, and that's what people want to acquire.
Yeah, and I think the recurring revenue bit. Whenever I'll speak to agents that don't really do lettings, and they'll go, "Oh yeah, no, I know what you mean because you get paid every month," and that's fine. But I think the bigger picture they miss is the value of the business. So yes, it's kind of guaranteed money that you're getting every month, but it is actually then that has a certain multiplier, which we'll come on to, that actually makes your business worth something. So if you want to exit the business at some point, which I imagine most people do, and the old business philosophy is you should really start with the end in mind. You've got to think when I want to leave, am I handing the keys to my kids and saying it's right, fine, you'll go, or do I want to retire? And if I retire, I don't think anybody can argue with us. You have to have a lettings business to be the saleable part of the business.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean that is what is being acquired, lettings businesses. If it's got a sales arm attached to it, then that'll be taken into account. But it's the lettings businesses that are desirable.
Exactly. And this is where, and so it is so much easier to acquire a lettings business and bolt on a sales side to it than it is to buy a sales business and bolt on a lettings side to it. And that's for the very simple fact that while lettings will give you your regular monthly cash flow when it gets going, short term sales is the quickest way to kind of get money. So you can open a sales arm, you can go door knocking, you can list properties pretty quickly. It's a lot more difficult to list lettings and everyone's always looking for this silver bullet and really there isn't one. So if you're going to organically grow a lettings business, it is a very long term thing, right? So for want of a better phrase, the only form of silver bullet you can find to grow your lettings business is going to be acquisition.
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely. That is the fastest way to grow. But I also think probably a slight tangent, but you see a lot of like the self-employed agents, etc. now growing a little lettings business. And I think there is this myth a little bit that every lettings business is worth a certain multiplier. And it's not. There's lots of factors, and we can come on to that, but there's a lot of factors to take into account. But if you are a self-employed agent and you just build yourself 20 managements and they're not managed by you and they're managed by someone else, it's not that valuable compared to if you build a lettings business that's run by a team and can be handed over to somebody very easily. So yeah, it will have every lettings business has some value because if someone came to us and said, "Hey guys, listen, I've got 20 lettings properties, I want to sell them," we would of course want to buy them, but we wouldn't be buying them at the same kind of price as we would if someone came along and said, "Hey, listen, I've got 300 and it's run by a team of four and you can just bolt it onto your business." strip a load of overheads out of it, keep the team running it, and it would be worth a lot more to us. So I think that's the other thing is like people need to consider how they're structuring these lettings businesses as well.
Yeah, fine. And I think that, without kind of willy waving, the reason that we're kind of we can talk, about this is that we've done it. So we've done five acquisitions.
We've done five, yeah, very
Um,
different sizes, yeah.
and varying sizes. We've done like almost a 20 up to like 150 kind of size, haven't we? So we've
Yeah.
had that not worth very much because it's just going to be probably into a, we've had to take the team on with it as well. We've done the whole spectrum.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's one of those things that as you get kind of started with acquisitions, you'll find as you go on, you'll actually you'll do a small acquisition, let's say. I mean, our first one, we acquired 100 properties and we had 100 properties ourselves and we doubled the size of our company overnight. So that's the power of acquisitions. But as we've done some a lot smaller than that and then one a bit bigger than that. Um, but we'd almost rather acquire bigger businesses now with a team running it because it actually makes it easier to integrate if the same people are dealing with the landlords. Um, I mean, I guess we could go off. Well, I mean, we could talk about this for hours and days, to be honest. So I might have to curb myself a little bit on some of it. But I think our experience now is that it's actually easier to acquire something that's bigger with a team running it than it is just to acquire a portfolio that comes along with no team.
Sure. Yeah. No, no. Yeah. No, and obviously the beauty of acquisition is, they'll be running at a certain margins, but you'll be able to strip a lot of those costs out because you'll always, or the very obvious ones, you'll have your Rightmove account, your Zoopla account, things like that. So your CRM, you'll have your infrastructure. But yeah, no, I make you right. Especially, I think with landlords, they get a bit nervy if they find, the company they're with has been sold. But if you can keep that transition, keep the team members in place, it just beds everything in a bit easier. So, in terms of acquisitions, now obviously the easiest way to buy it, and let's say there's a portfolio out there, and the person wants £150,000 for it, and yeah, you think it's worth that, and you've got £150,000 in your bank, fine. But there are a lot of people out there without 100, the kind of that cash in the bank, and I think there's a bit of a fallacy out there that you have to have all the money and pay up front, and this isn't some Samuel Leeds buy a house without ever having any money kind of nonsense. This is tried and tested methods because buying businesses is different to buying property. And I think that's where maybe a lot of agents get confused because we're so used and ingrained in selling residential property, we don't necessarily, myself included, at the start, understand the difference in buying businesses. And this is where you've really kind of learned and taught yourself. And well, you've been, you've learned from others, but in credit to you, you've done a lot of self-learning over the years as well. So yeah, do you want to talk a bit through what happens if it's 150 grand, do you have to put 150 grand in cash down?
Yeah, no, you don't. So simply, and even if you had 150 grand in cash, you should never put 100% of the money into the deal because you have to account for some, there will always be a natural loss of landlords at the point of an acquisition. That is the reality of it, and you have to factor a certain percentage of that into it. So you should always retain what's called a retention payment, and you should always retain something back as a bit of security, really. But it is a myth that you have to put all the money down, and it's actually a myth that you have to use any of your own money anyway. So there's multiple different ways to structure an acquisition. What I do find, and I don't say this with any disrespect to any of the business brokers in our sector, because we've got some good friends who are business brokers and we've got some really good relationships with them. But I liken it a little bit to estate agents. If someone came and tried to buy a property off of us in a non-traditional way, we wouldn't like that because we'd think, oh, we're not going to get all of our fee. And business brokers are a little bit like that. And sometimes, they don't understand themselves the ways that businesses can be bought and sold. So, really and truthfully, the whole key to buying any business is finding out what the motivation of the seller is, what they actually need, not what they want, but what they need from day one on exit, why they're exiting, um, and then you can build a plan from there because it may be that nobody needs 150, £300,000 on day one, they might actually prefer to receive an amount that allows them to do whatever they want, go on holiday, buy a nice car, whatever their motivations are, and then receive some money over time that basically allows them to stop working and pursue other things, but they're still getting paid. Some people, of course, do want as much money as possible on day one because they're selling their business to go and buy a house or whatever the case may be. So I think it's really important to be asking those questions at the start and finding out what the motivation is first, and then you can work out a structure of how you're going to buy this business.
And that's a really nice point to make because again, just trying to for kind of traditional agents, if you like, who haven't done this at the minute, you can liken that to going on a valuation because really, if you're going to see someone who wants to sell their home, the first thing you should be doing is you don't discuss the value of the home. You'd find out their motivation. Do they actually want to sell it? Is this likely to come to market? And what's important to them? Is it the money? Is it time? Is it security of sale? And those kind of things. Not that you ever want to sell anything cheaply, but you need to find out what's more important to that person. So you're saying that completely translates into the commercial side of things as well. And
100%. Well, sorry.
God, sorry. And the only thing I was going to say is it's probably important as well because we don't want to be kind of bullshitting people here. Is to let people know, much like you're not going to list every house you go to see, you're not going to buy every business you see because you know we're not going to tell you something here that's going to make you buy every business you talk to without putting down a load of money. There are some sellers that want far too much money and want a really cheap fee, and that's fine. There's an agent for them, and it's not for you. But we've had it in the past, haven't we? Where we've had people have come to us first. We've had really good chats, but somebody else has come with a big lump of money. We've valued it at X amount. Somebody's valued it at Y, and it's gone there. So it's about having. It's like a pipeline, really. Would you say you've got to have a number of conversations?
100%. Yeah, we call it deal flow. You need a pipeline. You need a deal flow so that also you don't really want because it's exciting, especially if it's your first acquisition. You don't really want one acquisition on the table because then you're like, I must buy this. I have to buy it. I'm going to do anything I can to buy it, and you start dealing with it a little bit emotionally and not on the numbers. And any acquisition is really obviously about the numbers. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. So yeah, it's really important that you don't, you get as many deals on the table as possible so you can consider them, um, sort of pragmatically. And yeah, I think it is important to say you won't buy every business that comes across your desk, and if you did, you'd probably be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Um, well, I mean, we've probably bought as many as we've actually not bought.
Mhm.
Um, but you learn a lot through considering and making offers. And it's like buying properties. You make offers. If you were a property investor, you would make offers on a lot of properties that you might not end up being the person that ends up buying them. But the other thing we have seen in the past is we've had conversations with some people who have said they wanted to sell. We haven't been able to come to like a structure that works for both of us. Um, and actually, those people are still sat in their business at the moment running them. So they wanted to exit, but they haven't been able to. So that then tells you there are not every business, um, because it's about timing as well. Obviously, there are the big buyers out there who everybody knows, the Le Monde Capitals, the Leaders Romans groups. There are some huge buyers, but they're not always buying in your area. So that is, if you want to sell to a bigger corporate, sometimes that's about timing. And so if there's not that buyer in the market, then you have to look for the larger independents. Or sometimes it's not even about that. Sometimes I think it's really important. It's about the trust. It's about I've got a team of staff. I want to exit my business. But I've worked with these people for 10, 12 years and I don't want them to be screwed over. So it's important to me who I sell it to. And that's the mindset of some business owners is that I don't just want to sell it to anybody. I actually want to sell it to a certain individual because I know they'll take my team on, they'll look after them and everything else. And I think that's really where people have got to understand business buying is not this one size fits all. It's
No.
every deal is individual.
Yeah, and we've seen that ourselves. I mean, we've been, very fortunate. We've had a couple that have come to us and they've basically said, "We want to sell to you because we like your ethos, we like your values." And and again, just trying to liken it back to a little bit the resi market. You will go and see the 70-year-old lady, who's lived in a house for 50 years and she's determined she wants to sell it to a nice family from the area and she doesn't want, the big bad Londoners coming in. But the switch on that is if somebody offers her a substantial amount more money she'll sell it because it's a house. But when you've got team involved, as you say, if you've employed somebody for years, you do genuinely care about them. You want to know they're going to be looked after. So um, I think so. On that point, I would suggest we've done well by publicly speaking about our kind of values, our mission, our vision, our ethos, and our team, the way we look after our team, because that has led people when they're thinking of selling to think, well, actually, I'd like to go and talk to the Bulldog brothers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think interestingly, if we look back, we haven't actually ever bought a business through a broker. All the ones we've done have actually been a direct approach. Either we've approached them directly and it's been the right time, or they've approached us directly when it's been the right time. I think that speaks volumes. People know they obviously know they can trust us, and that's why they approach us with those
So
opportunities.
So and as you say, there's no one size fits all. So there's obviously this, but can you give a bit of an overview of kind of the financial ways of buying, maybe a couple of examples of the things that we've done, just for people to give them an idea of what can be done aside from just putting down a big lump of money.
Yeah, definitely. So I think again, everyone's going to have an individual circumstance. You listen to what people want, etc. So the first one we bought was two business partners. One worked in the business, the other one was a silent investor, and they wanted to part ways essentially. So we bought that business and we borrowed some money. We bought it without using any of our own money. We borrowed some money. We then kept a retention payment behind. I think on that deal, we did actually pay about 80% up front, kept 20% behind for a year. And then once the business was settled, certain criteria had to be hit, and then they got the rest of the money. Um, Another business we bought was a solicitor's firm actually who had acquired another solicitors who happened to have a estate agency arm that was losing the money. So what they really wanted was someone to stop them losing money. And as it happened, we were able to rent some office space off them as well. And so that deal was, slightly unusual, but we ended up acquiring their lettings portfolio. Um, really for nothing because we were putting other things into the deal by giving them a rental income and actually stopping them losing money. Um, so we've done a couple of those. So sometimes you've got to borrow some money and you can borrow money unsecured. Obviously you can borrow larger amounts of money. You'd probably have to secure it on property. Um, and then we've done one fairly recently where somebody had they were long-standing industry friend of ours, really, and they had a bit of a health problem, wanted to exit their business but have their staff looked after. So we ended up putting, a decent chunk of money down that allowed them to do what they needed to do. And then we've done what we call like an earn-out agreement, where over 3 years we're paying them a percentage of the revenue. And that's really great for them and us because everything's got to be win-win. That's what we say in everything, win-win or no deal. And they're getting a percentage of the revenue for the next 3 years, which means that if we grow their portfolio, they do well. But if their portfolio didn't perform as they told us it would, then of course, we both win and lose together essentially. So hopefully that's sort of two or three different ways that deals come together.
I think because I think the signal crackled a little bit there. Do you just want to just re-talk quickly about how the kind of earn-out side of things works?
Yeah, sorry. So I think what I was saying is essentially one of the deals we did was where we an amount of money up front to allow the owner to go and do whatever they wanted, take the wife on holiday, buy a nice car, that kind of thing. And then we structured an earn out over 3 years. In this case, it can be shorter, could be longer, depending on what that person wants. Um, and also, you could also, I didn't mention this before, but that person may actually want to still have a job for a little while. They may not. They may want a complete exit. They may want to continue working. But either way, the earn-out structure means that they don't have to do any work anymore, but they still get paid for 3 years, and they're getting paid a percentage of the revenue. The reason we structure it as a percentage rather than a fixed amount is because that means they win when we win. And if their portfolio doesn't perform the way that they promised us, then obviously they suffer when we suffer, I guess. But they win when we win, and that's really important to us because
So that's because if we put the fees up, they're getting extra money that way, right?
yeah, that's right. So we'll take their business and optimize it. So we'll look at, are they charging for all the right things? Are they are they charging enough fees? Are they charging for plenty of different services? If we sell one of their properties, that's included. So we've got more more revenue streams, and we will optimize their business and put in the kind of service levels that we have to make sure our business is profitable. Um, so if we increase their revenue over the 3 years, they're going to benefit from that as well.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's the key, isn't it? Is being fair. And I think when you we can all nick a pound note somewhere. So if you're going to do a deal and you're going to try and stitch somebody up, agency is actually a very small world, and everybody knows everybody in the end. So I think, for the sake of you trying to shaft somebody, you're going to get a reputation quite quickly and not get any more deals. But I think
Yeah.
where we've done well is we do treat people fairly, and so that kind of gets around, and no one moans about how we've bought their business. So and other agents see that and want to come and have conversations with us.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's all about reputation, and you've got to deliver what you promised, and you've got to have very clear terms at the outset and asset purchase agreements. None of this is done on a handshake. It's all properly done, solicitors involved, due diligence done. Um, but you would do that whether you were doing it on an earn out or whether you were paying 80% up front or whatever the case may be. But I think the point is that there is not a one size fits all. There's so many different ways to structure a deal. And the reason for that is there's so many different reasons that people are trying to exit their business.
Yeah,
Some people are trying to exit their business because they've massively stuffed it up, in all honesty. I mean, we've acquired one where literally someone came and handed us 30 files and said, I need you to do something about this. And the compliance was a nightmare. Now, you're not going to pay any money for that. You might say, look, if I can sort it out, I'll pay you something over time. But no one's going to buy that. Well, no one sane is going to buy that for any money. Um, and that's why not every lettings business is valued the same, etc. I think when you see, and it is mostly broker led because they're the ones advertising acquisitions. When you see those valuations, everybody thinks every single lettings business out there in the industry is worth exactly the same amount of money. Um, and of course, it's not. You've got to take into account how well run it is, how compliant it is, has it got a team running it? Um, because I think the other thing to talk about when agents start thinking, oh, yeah, I fancy a bit of an acquisition, you've got to look at it and sort of what's your motivation for doing it. Yeah, of course, to grow your business, but don't forget your if you don't acquire something with a team, you're basically acquiring yourself or your existing team another job. You've got to
yeah,
do
yeah.
that work. And that's fine. That's how you grow your business, but you've got to be aware of that.
Yeah, and that takes me back. I was just thinking actually. So, just I know when you made about not getting too excited because you always want to do deals and things like that. But some, we mentioned some you won't get because you'll just value it a certain amount, and the seller's expectations will be too high in terms of payment terms or value. But also, it's you don't buy things that are going to put you under too much pressure. So me and you, I remember, many years ago now in a different part of Essex, we were invited to see, we had that infamous meeting in a kind of like a Costa and a petrol station or the pub next to the petrol station with a
Hmm.
lady, and on paper, the business we could have bought cheap, right? But when we actually looked into well, number one, it took about 3, 4, 5 meetings to actually get the finances, even the rent roll, what was going on. So that's always a red flag. If someone can't give you especially nowadays with CRMs, they can't produce that. But when we looked at it, there were so many tenants in arrears, there were so many compliance issues. Even though on paper it was a cheap buy, um, it was going to cause us, well, when we weren't as big in terms of team numbers then either, it was going to cause us massive headaches. It was like, you know, buying a really cheap house that had subsidence, you know, and kind of fire damage and asbestos everywhere. Yeah, yeah, it looked good value on paper, but there was going to be a hell of a lot of work to do it. And as you say, you have to be realistic and think, are we currently set up to take on that amount of extra pressure?
Well, yeah, exactly. And especially if you are going to borrow money, you've got to make sure you can service the clients and retain as many as possible. Because if you're taking on debt, you've got to be able to service that debt. Um, so I think one, it's about being able to service, have you got the capacity in your current team to soak up that business? Does it come with a team that you can just plug into your current business? Um, is it geographically a good fit for your current business? Um, and also, you've really got to look at it from the finance perspective. And that's what, we've only learnt this over the years, but no one will ever tell you that when they're trying to sell you a business. But actually, how does it cash flow?
Mm.
Because yes, you're going to take in a load of extra revenue, but if you've got debt or payments out to the owner, that doesn't come off your profit and loss. That goes onto your balance sheet. And that's the bit where people don't understand. So essentially you're going to be paying profit on money that you don't have because the revenue's going onto your profit and loss, meaning you're making more money, you've got to pay corporation tax. Um, but the cash isn't there because that cash is going out to the owner or to the debt repayment, and that actually goes onto your balance sheet. So again, you've got to look at it, and because you can come quite seriously unstuck with that. You could buy a business and run out of money, and
Yeah,
the reason you bought it was because you thought it was just going to bring you in this extra revenue. So that's something that's got to be planned, in advance, because otherwise you're doing yourself and whoever you're buying it off a disservice.
yeah, no, most definitely. Fine. Well, I've just so we're coming up to about that half an hour mark. I just quickly just wanted to recap a couple of bits, and also, you know, at the start, as I said, buying another business and acquisition will be as close to a silver bullet as they're going to get. But by the same token, I do want to be upfront with people. You will get some quick wins, but it's a long-term game as well, right? So if I'm just looking back at the ones that we've done, I mean, the first one we did, we probably just got lucky. You know, we kind of thought about it, having a conversation with this owner for ages. Eventually, got the courage to walk up into the office. We stood outside. We looked a little bit scared because there was two big bearded men hanging out outside. So I just went in by myself, and oddly, I just said, you know, would you look at a merger? Would you look at acquisition? And she just said, I've absolutely had enough. I'm selling. So that was deal done there and then. The last one we've done, as you've said, we've known the chap for like 20 years, and we've all, you know, always kind of cheekily said, "Oh, when is it time for you to retire? Can we come in?" One we didn't buy, that was an agent that we've known for a very long time, who at the end decided selling wasn't for him. Interestingly, I had a chat with him yesterday, and he said, "Oh, look, we need to have a chat and start preparing things for the future." So you might, so I think if you're going to want to buy something quickly, you basically just have to pull it out into the universe. You have to say it out loud. So, LinkedIn, conversations with people, but also this is still a relationship business. And much like, listing houses is about giving value and that kind of thing.
Mm.
Buying businesses is being valuable, and building relationships. So, we've had another one that we bought in a slightly different part of Essex. The guy only came to us because he had a nice relationship with you. And I think that's the bit, is it? Be friendly with agents, talk to them. Don't go, hey, can I buy your business? But over time, these conversations will come up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that is so true. It's like it is a relationship business. You're not, and you've got to be authentic about that, like you would be as an estate agent. Hopefully, it's the same when you're buying businesses. The authenticity of it is really important. You're not trying to nick a quick win here and there and acquire a few businesses. Like you are trying to develop relationships with people so that they know, like, and trust you, and then they will hopefully at whatever point someone might want to sell their business and they might approach you. And of course you've got to do your proactive marketing. You can send out letters and you can do your LinkedIn outreach and everything like that. But I think that is really important because otherwise you end up deals will go wrong. If you've got to have a good relationship with the owner if you're going to buy their business off them because it's like buying their baby basically, It's like it's a bit, if you built a business up, there's a real emotional attachment to it, and you've got to genuinely be good to them when you're buying it from them.
Fine. Okay. So the key points really are there's no one size fits all box here. You've got to find the seller's motivation and see what works for them and works for you. It's a relationship business, but not every business is a good business to buy. So just, don't just go buying the first thing you see. Make sure it actually can fit into your business and not cause you problems down the line. A fair summary?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, have some strategy behind it.
Good stuff. Well, and on that point, not that we're here to add value to people, but there probably are a couple of brothers that have done some bits in this space and can advise you and help you with your strategy. So if anyone is looking at, at acquiring businesses and they want help on how to do it, they can obviously reach out to us and we can help them with that, right?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And sometimes it's about helping people. Maybe like it's not, your business is only worth this today, but actually, I can help you to make it worth more money if you did this, this, and this to it. So,
Oh,
yeah,
sure. So,
and
yeah,
that's also another way to be honest. I know we're trying to wrap up. That's another way to structure a deal. There are ways sometimes you can say to people, look, I will work with you on a consultancy basis, implement these things, and when it gets to that level, then maybe we can achieve the price that you wanted. Today, it's only really worth X amount to me, but if you implement these things, then we can get to the price you want.
fine. So the very quick sales pitch is if you are looking for help in working out how to acquire businesses, we can help you. Or if you're looking for help in how to build your business in a way that it will be acquired one day and worth some money, we can also help you with that.
Definitely.
Perfect. Right. We're going to try the ending again. Okay. So we'll do the thanks everybody for listening, watching. Please do like, please subscribe, please share. We want to help as many people as we can. Um, I've been Matt Baldock. He's been,
Neil Baldock,
and we've been talking Bulldogs.
good stuff. Goodbye.
See you later, mate.